This is Eric Anderton, and you're listening to Construction Genius, a leadership masterclass. Thomas Edison said that genius is 1% inspiration and 99% perspiration. If you're a construction leader, you know all about the perspiration, and this show is all about the 1% inspiration that you can add to your hard work to help you to improve your leadership.
I relax by baking chocolate chip cookies. A couple of weeks ago, I got home after a pressure-packed day and decided to bake. The recipe called for baking soda, and since I didn't have any in the house, I substituted baking powder. The first batch came out, and after they cooled, I gave one to each of my kids with a glass of milk, and I waited for their squeals of pleasure. Imagine my disappointment when their faces puckered up and they started gagging. The problem is when you substitute baking soda for baking powder, you have to add 2 or 3 times as much to get the same leavening effect. And depending on the recipe, this can cause a bitter taste. I was unaware of this, despite the fact that I've been baking for many, many years. And my whole house was disappointed that my cookies fell below my usual standard because of my lack of preparation. Prior preparation is not only essential to excellent baking, it's also critical to running effective meetings of any kind, but particularly problem-solving meetings. Are you tired of leading meetings that are a waste of time and energy? In this episode of Construction Genius, episode 18, we're going to discuss 3 ways that you can prepare for an effective problem-solving meeting. Those 3 ways are, number 1, accurately identify your problems. Number 2, pick the team. And number 3, make the rules. You see, construction is extremely interesting because it's both a product and a service business. All contractors build or install a physical product of some kind. The construction process in the bidding, planning, and building stages is typically complex, and each step along the way requires communication, conflict resolution, and hand-holding. All of these are service-based activities. Challenges happen every day, and sometimes you need a meeting to figure out how to resolve issues. That's why it's so important that you are an expert at the first part of preparation, which is accurately identifying your problems. In a business, problems occur in 3 main areas. To complete a project, you produce a finished product. You have unique processes that guide every aspect of how you operate. And you have people who drive the success of your product and processes. These are the 3 P's: product, process, and people. All 3 of these P's work together to maximize the 4th, and ultimately for a business, the most important P, and that is profit. If you have problems with any aspect of your product, process, or people, your profitability will suffer. The market does not lie, and it will punish you for poor quality, poor service, and failure to deliver. One of the best ways of discovering where problems exist is to accurately track the metrics of your operation. You track hit rate, the difference between estimated and actual costs, safety, quality, productivity, just to name a few. You have lagging indicators like gross profit that tell you how well you've done on a project, and leading indicators like daily field production rates that tell you if you are doing the right things on a project to drive future profitability. I know it sounds a little obvious, but your meetings, particularly your weekly project meetings, will be much more effective if you take time prior to the meetings to figure out where your issues exist. Look at your lagging and leading indicators and allow them to point you in the direction of your problems. Now, construction meetings often get heated and frustrating, so it's essential that you prepare your facts beforehand. Last week, an industry colleague of mine who works for a subcontractor was telling me about a project meeting he participated in. The senior superintendent, representing the general contractor, gathered a variety of subs together to talk about the value of teamwork and not making excuses for quality issues or schedule delays. The superintendent illustrated his point by highlighting my colleague's company for their failure to meet the schedule and the impact that had on other trades. Being called out publicly like this stunned my colleague, but fortunately, he was prepared with some facts. He pointed out to the general contractor that they were the root cause of the schedule problems because they had pushed back the start of the project a number of times. We all know people who fail to accurately identify the source of problems and like to shift the blame and the cost onto others. That's why being prepared with facts before a meeting is so important. Now, once you've got the problem accurately identified, you need to give some thought to who you would like to participate in the meeting to solve the problem. And that leads us to the second step in the meeting preparation process: pick the team. Strike the right balance between quality and quantity. Invite your leaders who are directly affected by the problem and anyone else who would have input from a technical or process-based perspective. Depending on the topic, you may have someone from a completely different department attend to get input from an outside view. For example, say that your ratio between bids made and bids won, that is your hit rate, is not good enough, and you call a meeting of your estimating department to figure out how it can be improved. Invite 1 or 2 PMs and superintendents to give their view. They'll have insights from the field in terms of the best types of clients to work with and projects to work on that may have a positive impact. Whatever mix you pick, don't have too many participants. I recommend somewhere between 6 and 10 in a problem-solving meeting, but no more than 12. This gives you a diversity of input without too many voices muddying the messages. You can be crystal clear on the problem you need to address. You can gather the right team to get ideas on how to solve the problem, but you can still have a terrible meeting if you don't take the third step of prior preparation, and that is make the rules. Here are the top 3 rules or ground rules that will ensure a great meeting. Number 1, focus. Now, right now you are listening to this podcast probably through your smartphone, that I affectionately or non-affectionately like to call the crack pipe. We all know that we're addicted to our phones, addicted to email. You should spend no more than 1 hour at a time in a meeting to solve a problem. And because you're only spending an hour of time, more than that, and the attendees' attention wanders and their energy wanes, because you're only going to spend an hour doing problem solving, you need to insist that people put away their phones and not work on their computers and focus 100% of their energy and attention on working the problem that you're going to focus on. So shut down the laptop, put away the phone, and commit to absolute focus. Okay, now, along with that comes the second part of the rule, which is participate. So the first one is put down the crack pipe or focus. The second one is participate. Everyone who's been invited to the meeting should be there because they have something to contribute. No one gets to hide in the corner, and no one gets to dominate the meeting. You need to all commit to tackling the toughest challenge you have today. So with that in mind, in terms of participation, the first thing that every person in the meeting should do is to drop the mask. Be honest about mistakes. Be willing to say that I need help. And you as the leader of the meeting need to be the model of dropping the mask. The second thing is don't be overly pessimistic. Acknowledge that there are issues, otherwise you wouldn't be having a meeting, but make sure that everyone is committed to being cheerful and determined. And then the last part of the participation piece is what I call kill the bear. There was a movie made in 1997 called The Edge. If you haven't seen it, you should go see it. It's very good. And the basic plot is this. A billionaire, an older guy, goes to Alaska with his supermodel wife for a photo shoot. And they go out with the photographer to look for a good location to take photos, and they crash land in the woods. Now, the model, for some reason, was not on the plane, but what you have is you have the rich guy and the photographer. And the photographer is having an affair with his wife and is very interested in killing the rich guy so that he can not only get his wife, but also get his money. And so a nice vacation turns into a game of life and death when a man-eating bear begins to hunt them. That's really interesting. So you have this old guy and this younger guy. The younger guy wants to get rid of the old guy so he can get his wife, but then there's this bear. And so what happens is these two guys have to get together and figure out how to kill the bear. And there's this classic line from the movie, and the line is this. The older guy says this: "What one man can do, another man can do." Neither the old guy, the billionaire, or the photographer had ever killed a bear before. But if they didn't, the bear was going to kill them. So they had to figure it out. And that kill the bear mentality is absolutely essential to an effective problem-solving meeting. And it's essential to those who are participating in the meeting. What one person can do, another person can do. We may never have faced this particular problem before, but we are going to do our very best to solve it and to have a positive outlook on this opportunity. All right, so now that leads us to the last ground rule, and that is simply don't be a jerk. Sometimes the best ideas to solve a problem come from the most inarticulate or unpopular member of the team. We are not in junior high anymore. So that means suspending judgment regarding the validity of ideas. You need to get very good at generating ideas in a problem-solving meeting. So set the ground rule, don't be a jerk. No laughing, no mocking, or no belittling other people's input. Be a First Amendment absolutist in your meetings. And in other words, allow freedom of speech. Avoid groupthink. Okay, you have issues in your business. You always have to find that balance between building projects safely and quickly and with high quality. And you need those diverse opinions to help you solve issues around those aspects of your business. And let me encourage you, don't have a company blacklist. Don't blacklist people from attending meetings because you don't like them or someone in the meeting doesn't like them. If you've got people who you are not inviting to meetings, then you should really consider whether or not they should be in your business at all. But don't have that blacklist, and don't have the attitude of my way or the highway. Understand that it takes courage for people to speak up, and give them space to speak up, even if their opinion is unpopular. So you've got to set these ground rules before a meeting, and then you enforce them during the meeting by, number one, modeling them yourself. So in other words, if you're not prepared to go into a meeting for an hour without looking at your phone, then you need to not have that meeting. You need to be the one willing to model no interruptions, full participation, and not being a jerk. So that means you need to be willing to point out specific examples of non-adherence to those ground rules during the meeting. But be patient as well, because we're not perfect. We have to keep working on our attitude and our demeanor in these meetings in order to make them effective. Last summer, wildfires raged across my home state of California. Many houses were destroyed by the flames. Some structures in the fire zone survived, though, because of prior preparation. Property owners kept flammable objects 30 feet from their houses, cleared leaves from gutters, decks, and patios, and trimmed back overhanging trees. All of this preparation took time, but it was worth it. Prior preparation is just one part of running an effective problem-solving meeting. If you'd like to learn more about a meeting framework that I have used with construction companies for over a decade to help them address their toughest problems, go to my website, ericanderton.com/KAM. That is the initials of the report, which is Kick-Ass Meetings. So again, ericanderton.com/KAM. It's a free short report. It outlines the process that I use and that I teach my clients. It's extremely effective. It's very simple. And if you use it, you will find it to be useful in solving the toughest challenges that you have in your organization. I appreciate you listening to this episode of Construction Genius. My name again is Eric Anderton. Feel free to go out to iTunes or Google Podcasts. Give us a review. Give us your feedback. Share this with other construction professionals. And again, thank you for listening.